So tonight we're going to focus on irregular verbs in the preterite. And when I say irregulars, I mean beyond stem changers and got verbs, which we've already talked about. So tonight we're going to talk about what could be termed the FUJIY verbs. Okay. So for irregular verbs in the preterite, remember FUJIY. In the F group, we have two verbs, ser and ir. And they both share the same conjugation in the preterite. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. In the U group, we have several different verbs, including poder, which if you don't remember, it means to be able to. Pude, pudiste, pudo, pudimos, pudisteis, pudieron. And we have the verb poner, of course, which means to put, if you don't remember. And of course, and is used in various idiomatic expressions. Its U conjugation always starts with pus, so you get puse, pusiste, puso, pusimos, pusisteis, pusieron. And you might want to notice, take note of something else that is common to most FUJIY verbs. They don't have any accents. We're going to see a difference there with the Y verbs, but up until that point, you really don't see any accents with FUJIY verbs. Here's the verb caber, to fit. It's also a U verb. Cupe, cupiste, cupo, cupimos, cupisteis, cupieron. As a variation of the U verbs, we have verbs that have UV in them. For example, estar and tener. Now, with estar and tener, I put them on the same slide because if you can learn tener, then basically you have the conjugation for estar. You just add an S to it, and every time you get the preterite conjugation of estar, the correct one. So let's start with tener on the right. Tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvisteis, tuvieron. And of course, estar, like I said, just add S to the tener conjugations and you get the preterite conjugations for estar. Estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, estuvisteis, estuvieron. Another UV verb is andar, which doesn't look like it would be irregular, but it is. So we get anduve, anduviste, anduvo, anduvimos, anduvisteis, anduvieron. And notice that if basically we change the and to a T, te, we get tener, the same endings as with tener. So all these verbs are very similar. In the J group, we get any verb that ends in usir. For example, traducir, producir, conducir. So let's take the verb traducir, which means to translate. Producir, if you don't remember, means to produce. And conducir is to drive. It can also mean to guide someone someplace or conduct. Traduje, tradujiste, tradujo, tradujimos, tradujisteis, tradujeron. Notice the J in there. The same thing happens, or something similar happens with traer. Traje, trajiste, trajo, trajimos, trajisteis, trajeron. Take close note with J verbs also, the ustedes, ellos, ellas form, the third person plural form, never has an I after the J. Also in the J group is the verb decir. Dije, dijiste, dijo, dijimos, dijisteis, dijeron. In the I group, we also have three big verbs that are very commonly used, venir, querer, and hacer. So, if we conjugate venir in the preterite, again, no accents. Notice we're not to the Y part of FUJIY, so there are no accents up to now. We change that first E to an I. Same thing is going to happen with querer. Vine, viniste, vino, vinimos, vinisteis, vinieron. And with querer, we get quise, quisiste, quiso, quisimos, quisisteis, and quisieron. Now, I mentioned hacer as another of those three big verbs that are very commonly used that are I verbs. Hacer does something very similar, but be careful. Notice the third person singular form, hizo. It has a Z instead of a C. And remember that Z's are never pronounced like they are in English and Spanish. They're never pronounced like Z. They're always pronounced like an S. So, hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron. We have two other verbs that are conjugated pretty much alike in the I category, dar and ver. Okay, if you can do that, you can do ver, just change the D to a V. So di, with that we get di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron. With ver, we're going to get vi, viste, vio, vimos, visteis, vieron. In the Y group, we get verbs that typically have two vowels next to each other, side by side. Leer, creer. Here we have oír on the right, for example. Here accents come into play again. So with the verb leer, for example, you get leí with an accent over the I, leíste with an accent over the I, leyó, notice the Y in the sandal in the third person forms, we're going to get a Y, leyó. Leímos, there's a misprint here. There should be an accent over the I. You might want to take note of that. Leímos, leísteis, and leyeron. And the verb leer, of course, means to read. Also in the Y group, we have oír. So with oír, we get oí. It's very similar to what happened with leer. Notice the accents in every form but the third person plural form. Oí, oíste, oyó. There's our Y, again in the sandal in both third person forms. Oímos, oístes, oyeron. Any verb that ends in uir also does something similar. Okay. So, as I was saying, any verb that ends in uir is going to also be a Y verb, and in the third person forms, the singular and plural forms, it's going to have an y, a Y. Notice the accents as well in the first person and third person singular forms. So, again, for example, uir, uí, uiste, huyó, huimos, huisteis, huyeron. And something similar, as you can see on the left, would happen with uir, which is also a verb that ends in uir, U-I-R. All right, here's a little exercise for you. Try translating the following sentences on a separate sheet of paper and bring them to class tomorrow, please. And here you can try to fill in the blanks with the verbs that are indicated. Again, on your separate sheet of paper, bring it to class tomorrow as part of your homework. Eso es todo. Muy buenas tardes. Hasta mañana.